SMEs and some of the challenges they face, particularly with human resource. There's a need for us to talk about this emerging development in the energy sector. PDS indeed was a great scandal that rocked this nation after the U.S. government gave us a 190 million United States dollars grant. It turned out that the contracts giving were fraudulent. PDS subsequently, took us for international arbitration, and now there's an outcome. That outcome appears to be in favor of the Republic of Ghana, where the international arbitration is now giving us a clear roadmap that we have the power as the Republic of Ghana even to cancel the contract or abrogate it in the first place, and that steps can now be taken by the Republic of Ghana to take any redress of a sort that we want. The Ministry of Energy has subsequently issued a statement on that. Portions of the statement quoting that, quote, "We're taking all necessary legal and administrative steps to recover any amounts due ECG and the state. Our focus is on accountability, transparency, and sustainable reforms." That's because the court has ruled that the government was entitled to terminate the concession agreement because the demand guarantees issued in respect of the transaction were invalid from the outset, which means that it was void ab initio. That's the ruling of the international arbitration, and PDS triggered this process. PDS now telling the general public that they are considering their next moves. However, they have come to terms with this ruling through international arbitration. What's the implication of this for the energy sector, and what do experts make of this latest development surrounding the PDS deal? As for the compact is closed, I want to bring in Ben Boakye, who's Executive Director for the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. Good morning to you, Ben. And yes, it's sad that the U.S. government says they've closed the compact. Now the government wants to chase instead PDS for any necessary funds that's due the Republic of Ghana. Your impression, first of all, about the outcome from this international arbitration?
A powerful man.
And good morning to the team. I think it's a good news. If what we're hearing is actually what is in the ruling, we are cautious to wait for the document so we can peruse them. Have seen that in myself, but the double claims from each side, that they actually won the case. So we will wait to hear and see. We wait and see what is actually in the document, and then we'll be able to comment appropriately. But on the broader scheme of things, the compact was to help us clean up the energy sector and ensure that the budget is insulated from the waste that we continue to see from the energy sector. Unfortunately, politicians made it impossible for that arrangement to succeed. And that is what got us, to this point where now we are celebrating, a win in court, when indeed the waste has actually ballooned over the period. In between the time of the cancellation of PDS arrangement and now, we probably have spent more than $10 billion subsidizing the power sector, which ordinarily shouldn't have been the case. And that would have been significant resources that could have been channeled into infrastructure or development projects in the country. So for a policy person, we are rather, worried about how we fail to take advantage over, obstructive situation and rather messed it and continue to bleed the budget for it.
Probably because of the rains, you might want to speak up a bit more loudly for us. But going forward, is it the case that the doors are shut? We don't have the opportunity of recovering any more funds as the government is seeking to do?
The compact was a $500 million grant to Ghana. We spent substantial amount, close to $300 million. What we did not get was the unspent funds at the time of the cancellation of the PDS, contract, which is around $192 million. So significant amounts were spent. If you look at the Boakye, BSP, and other projects that were undertaken, without those, I mean, the grid will be extremely unstable at this point. So to that extent, some investments were made. We lost out on the $192 million, which is still not available, and I don't see how that will be reinstated. Of course, diplomatically, if the government is able to engage more, it could be possible to get some investment, maybe not with the same vehicle, but the donor community is always open to reforms, and I'm sure if we engage deeper, we could get resources to do that. But as to whether we are really, committed to dealing with these problems remains, things that we are working on. As you know, the ministry has been working on reforming the power sector throughout the year, setting up committees to look at the options to deal with the recurring debt. The Ministry of Finance is still spending, but there is still no concrete, pathway for dealing with the recurring inefficiencies in the energy sector. Some positives have happened this year where revenue collection has really gone up. But the reality is that it's just prioritizing the budget to deal with the inefficiencies. And that requires that more urgent steps and quicker steps are taken to resolve the energy sector problems. And from where we sit at is the conclusion is that government has failed to be efficient and deliver the energy sector the way it should be done. And we think that the government should resign to regulation and bring in the private sector to ensure that we are sacrificing everything. The amount of money that we are paying for gas, we are paying for IPPs, debt that continue to mount. It's just unacceptable.
Here's the focus now.
Rather than the narrow focus on what we couldn't do in the past with PDS.
Here's the focus now for the Ministry of Energy. Quote, our focus is on accountability, transparency, and sustainable reforms. You've touched on the aspect of reforms. Who should be held accountable now? Hello, Ben. We seem to be losing you intermittently. If you could just reposition yourself, speak up for us a bit more.
Hello?
Yes, that's
the
better now.
ministry is responsible for whatever happens in the sector. But we do know that in our political schemes, you may have a minister, but some decisions even go beyond the minister. There are interest holders, there are deep state participants who have enormous power that they can bring to bear, even on the minister, to make decisions that undermine the developments in the sector. So we all have to work together to appreciate that we are wasting too much resource, and whoever has interest in undermining the collective interest of the people will deal with it. And that is where, for us as a think tank, we're going to be focusing on making sure that we can prioritize the state's interest and make sure that we deal with the inefficiencies in the sector.
In the immediate term, any expectations on what should happen?
I'm expecting that we will push to get investment, the private sector participation that was approved by Cabinet. There's a committee looking at it. There'll be clear timelines. We're already losing a year, right? And the transaction advisors are not in place. We need to hasten that process and get it done quickly so we can attract investment and be able to clean it up and take over $1.5 billion subvention of the budget and reinvest that into socio-economic development.
If you're looking at the broad aims of why PDS in the first place is part of our Millennium Challenge to transform the energy sector and to promote private investments, have we lost track of that as a country, or is there a way back just to get back on track?
It was a government decision. I mean, at the time when we were bringing in the private sector into generation, the government around 2014 decided that we needed to also clean up the distribution end of the value chain so that once people generate power and it's transmitted and consumed, it will be paid for. And so the solution was to bring in the private sector at the distribution end to be able to close the loop so that there wouldn't be a gap for Ministry of Finance to pick up, because government guaranteed the uptake of the power that will be generated. And that is essentially the roadmap that we had from 2014 through to 2017. We were supposed to have delivered that, and we couldn't deliver it. So we can still go back without even the American intervention. The government has a mandate to actually take necessary steps to actually deliver that solution to isolate the budget from, direct intervention in the power sector. So it's really the government's job to actually deliver that kind of intervention.
I'm looking at the fallouts from the last Public Accounts Committee seating. ECG doesn't. There seems to be no end in sight to when all of these financial infractions at ECG will end. Should we go back to the idea of floating, perhaps giving ECG back to a private investor?
We should. There's no reason why we shouldn't. And I've said consistently that if you look at the SOEs, ECG, because they collect the revenue, they're always on the front burner on conversations. But all the energy sector agencies are inefficient. All right. Typically, an item that will cost 2 cedis on the shelf, they will buy it for 6-7 cedis. And any state agency that is running with that kind of mindset and that kind of poor procurement practices needs to be retooled. All right. And that is how we have to do it. And if the states cannot do it, then we have to allow the private sector to come and do it. Otherwise, those mismanagement and inefficiencies have to be picked up by the finance minister, because they will all crystallize into a debt that we will have to absorb somehow. And if it goes to finance minister, they will have to impose a levy or a tax somewhere else to be able to pay for it. And it's the consumer that is actually going to pay in the long run. So improving efficiency, starting with the collection of revenue and not staying there, but going deeper into VRA, into BUI, and to all the agencies to clean them up, make them more efficient with their procurement, their expenditures, to make sure that government revenues can target development broadly and not just subventing the energy sector.
For the average Ghanaian, keeping the lights on is what matters most. There's relative stability, you agree now. Is that not enough justification to say, let's keep the lights on? That's all that matters.
That is what we always say. Keeping the light on is not the only thing for the average Ghanaian. The lights on in some places, people cannot afford it because we keep padding inefficiencies into the tariff. So we have to make sure that the system is efficient. And that is the only way you can get cheaper power and you're not paying more. You're not being demanded to pay more taxes to be able to address the energy sector problems. If we reduce it to keeping the light on, then we get more inefficiencies and forget, the key problems that we have to address in the energy sector.
Before we wrap up on this conversation, are you of the firm conviction that PDS still owes the Republic of Ghana some money?
I know there's some money they have that they have to remit to ECG. I wouldn't know what the court says. I haven't been able to audit those numbers. I don't know how ECG has dealt with it from that time on. You see the data to know really whether they owe or they do not owe. And the court perhaps would have also determined from the time that they exited to now whose money would have been used to go through the court prosecuting the residents. So we need to see what the ruling of the court is and determine whether they still owe Ghana.
Which means that whatever the case, the Republic of Ghana should be getting some money.
Money is not significant in the scheme of things. If you're looking at the time we were talking about around 200 million cedis, we are losing billions of dollars in the energy sector every year. And for me, it's the key focus that we have to look at. Even since we have been in court, we have lost billions. Circa 1.5 2 billion a year in the energy sector. And that for me is a big issue for government and for Ghana to address. then, if there's 200 million anywhere, we should go for it. But we are bleeding far more than that, and we shouldn't lose sight of that.
All we can say is thank you, Ben Boakye, for spending some time with us here on the Super Morning Show. This matter is certainly unfolding, and we just wait to see what the outcome would be. Kojo, it's just unfortunate that we've lost the compact. $190 million gone. And now we have to chase either PDS or someone else for our cash.
We keep shooting ourselves in the foot when it comes to how we manage our power sector. Everybody owes everybody. Nobody is following the rules, and every Ghanaian is bearing the brunt. Look, this thing, it trickles down in a real way into people's households. Look, let me tell you, in my home, I remember we ran out of power while I was out of town, and my cousin who lives in the house just put 100 cedis on the meter because he couldn't reach me. 100 cedis ran out in 24 hours.
What?
24 hours. Now let me tell you what we run in our home. There's one air conditioner in my room. When Fifi is with me, then there are two air conditioners, right? But in that 24-hour period, Fifi wasn't there. Neither was I.
Yeah.
So no air conditioners were running. The only thing that was running perpetually was a fridge. One fridge and some fans, and I suppose the lights. 100 cedis.
How did they disappear?
So which family in this country can afford 100 cedis a day on electricity? Which family? That's 3,000 cedis a month.
Yeah.
Who? In fact, less than 20% of Ghanaians earn 3,000 cedis or more per month. So, seriously, we are on the verge of electricity being unaffordable because of the poor decisions that we make all along the value chain. All of us. Like, the wastage is ridiculous. If we are not using the power and not paying for it, we are taking the payment and not distributing it to the right places or wasting it. Public Accounts Committee had to ask dozens of questions of ECG recently. And by the way, I did a bit of digging and I discovered that, all of those cost items under communication, and it's not very fair to the communications directorate of the ECG, because what I learned was that they put almost everything under the cost item communication, right? So even when they buy signs, little signs that say danger to go and put on the transformers, it's under communication.
It is public communication,
right? Exactly. Yeah. So everything gets put under. When they do capacity building,
communication.
Every department does capacity building. Even the engineers do capacity building, but it comes on communication. So then they will say communication overran its budget, and it's not very fair to them. But either way, as an institution, they are overrunning. They are overrunning. And that's why the Public Accounts Committee was questioning them, right? And this is just one institution in a value chain that is continuously wasting money. And the ultimate bearer of the brunt is you and me.
People.